A passenger train swallowed by a blizzard in 1974 just rolled into the station, and its passengers haven't aged a single day. It was supposed to be the worst winter storm in the line's history. Winds howled, snowdrifts swallowed the rails, and the North Line Express vanished somewhere between Pine Ridge Tunnel and Mount Gray Summit. Newspapers screamed, "Greatest rail disaster of the century," yet no wreckage, no bodies, no crack in the ice ever surfaced. Exactly 50 years later, at 3:17 a.m., a grainy security camera caught the impossible. A steam-powered locomotive, lacquered in frost thicker than fresh cement, eased into Track 9. The headlamp beam was so dim it looked hand-lit. On its front boiler, the original service plate, NL-274, still glinted, untouched by time. Tonight we step aboard that frozen relic. A train that should be rusted to dust, yet glides in as if it never left the timetable. Why hasn't a single seat cushion torn? Why do the pocket watches on board still read 23:59, December 24th, 1974? And why is the event log in the black box still recording, right now? By the final minute of this story, you'll know whether the train truly returned or time itself bent to keep its promise. Question: if you saw a half-century-old ghost train glide in, would you step inside or run away? Drop a comment, "I'd board" or "I'd bolt." The boldest answers get shout-outs in tomorrow's video. The air knifed through my coat as I hurried past shuttered ticket booths. Station lamps flickered with sodium glow, each bulb a hazy halo in airborne ice crystals. Track 9 lay under a quilt of snow so pristine it squeaked. Then a shape emerged, first a smokestack, then a row of frost-coated carriages. Thin wisps of steam leaked from valves like quiet sighs after a long nightmare. I pressed a gloved hand to the engineer's side window. Ice crystals spider-webbed across the glass. Dangling from a hook was a brass pocket watch, its hands glued to 11:59 p.m. My breath fogged the pain. The condensation instantly froze, sealing the moment twice. Brass lever, steel rail. The door fought me, metal shrieked like an animal snapped awake. Inside, faint gas lamps cast amber over velvet seats. A lady in a sapphire traveling suit sat upright, eyes open, pupils fixed on something none of us could see. Frost dusted her lashes. A half-knitted scarf drooped from ivory needles. Opposite her, a boy gripped a yo-yo mid-swing, string stiff as wire. Their skin looked waxen, perfectly preserved, terrifyingly still. Beneath my boots, the floorboards trembled, not forward, not back, but as though the train still hurled through a storm trapped inside its hull. I glanced at my phone. No signal. Its clock stalled at 03:17. Was the train freezing my timeline too? Static popped over ancient speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the North Line Express apologizes for the delay." The voice evaporated in a burst of white noise. Dust drifted from the speaker grill like aged breath. In the engine compartment, a reel-to-reel recorder still spun. I slipped on the headset. A cyclone of wind tore at my ears, punctuated by a conductor's rasp. "Signal, time, loop," as if he broadcast from inside the storm that ate them. Snowflakes, perfect hexagons, skated across the compartment glass, drifting backwards, as if sucked toward where the train had been rather than where it was. A stray suitcase lurched down the aisle, scattering folded newspaper sheets yellowed by half a century. The headline, "Blizzard Express lost, 150 souls feared dead." No radio, no cell reception, no ticking time. The only clue was the black box ribbon droning in endless rewind. Instinct begged retreat. Curiosity locked my feet in place. I reached, trembling, for the recorder. The second my fingers brushed its metal, every lamp flickered. Passengers' frost-caked fingers twitched. Somewhere, gears clanked like doors opening between years. Will I pull back the veil or vanish like those before me? That choice, and its consequences, await on the next track. Station Master Claren Wynn was sipping reheated coffee when Track 9's signal panel erupted in crimson. A sensor that had been dark for 50 years suddenly reported, "Rolling stock present." She spat a curse, clacked across the tiled floor and through the CCTV feed onto the main monitor. There it was, an iron leviathan crawling through swirling snow, lanterns glowing like orphan stars. "That can't be," she whispered, recalling archives about the North Line Express. A junior officer radioed, "Ma'am, we don't even have steam on this line." The station's modern safety manual offered no guidance for ghost equipment. Clara slammed the Red 4 override, cutting power to adjacent tracks. She barked orders to maintenance crews. "Clear the platform, seal the pedestrian tunnel, Call transit police. Yet curiosity gnawed. She donned a high-visibility parka and descended the service stairs herself. As Clara's boots crunched onto the platform, the air grew colder than outside wind chill. Frost traced spiderwebs over lamppost globes. The locomotive hissed, releasing a sigh that smelled of coal and half-remembered winters. Clara's breath crystallized instantly, floating away like confetti. She wiped frost from the engine plate, NL274. Record said NL274 departed on Christmas Eve, 1974, with 147 passengers and 3 crew. Officially, it succumbed to avalanche conditions, presumed buried. Yet here it stood, metal intact, rivets gleaming under rime. Clara's radio crackled. Control to track 9, ID found? Her voice quavered. Confirmed. It's the Lost Express. Clara knelt beside the bogie assembly. The steel tires were pristine, no rust, no pitting, yet caked with decades-old ice. She touched the wheel flange. It sparked with static that zapped her glove. The sensation was like touching a doorknob charged by a thunderstorm. Electric, ancient. As Clara stepped onto the conductor's stair, a puff of steam whooshed from the safety valve, wrapping her in a swirling halo. She felt briefly weightless, as though gravity faltered. A station loudspeaker behind her fizzed to life, spitting out a line from a 1970s holiday jingle before dying again. The past was leaking through the PA system. Peering through a carriage window, Clara saw silhouettes painted in frost silver, a nurse cradling a medical kit, a soldier clutching a furlough letter, 2 children sharing earmuffs. None moved, yet their eyes seemed bright, as if caught mid-blink the instant the blizzard struck. A thin layer of hoarfrost covered every surface, glinting in lamplight like diamonds on velvet. She pushed into the driver's cab. Instruments were analog, boiler gauges frozen at 210 psi. Throttle lever halfway open. A half-smoked cigarette rested in an ashtray, still smolder-warm when she tapped it. Impossible. No ember can glow for half a century. A clipboard hung beside the window. The last entry read, ETAs of 15, weather worsening. The signature below, Engineer Pistonko. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Clara's smartwatch vibrated and then froze. Seconds stopped counting. A low hum, more felt than heard, rippled down the metal frame. She recognized it from stories of power transformers saturated by snowstorms, only deeper, older, almost syllabic. Backup units arrived, flood lamps blazing across drifting snow. Yet Clara raised a gloved hand. Halt. This isn't a derelict, she murmured. It's a bubble. She radioed Central. Prep and evidence team, and physicists, if you have any, were boarding. She stepped farther inside, each footfall echoing like a hammer on glass, breaking 50 years of silence. The threshold crossed, the investigation begins, and reality may not follow the timetable. Clara led a 4-person team. Forensic tech Leo Ortiz, paramedic Dr. Mina Chow, railway historian Owen Katri, and Transit Police Sergeant Riley Ames. Each wore thermal gear and carried a body cam. As they crossed the vestibule, Leo's Geiger counter crackled, then fell silent, the needle frozen between 2 ticks. Electromagnetic dead zone, he muttered. Our electronics may glitch. Inside the first carriage, humidity crystallized mid-air. Their exhalations formed glittering clouds that hung motionless for several seconds before drifting backward, as if a gentle wind flowed toward 1974. Sergeant Ames tried his radio. Static. Dr. Chow's smartwatch read 3:17 and refused to advance. Row of travelers sat rigid under thin frost. Dr. Chow placed a pulse oximeter on a young woman's finger. The device stayed blank, yet the skin retained warmth. 98 degrees Fahrenheit impossibly. Iris response sluggishly contracted when Mina shone a penlight. They're alive, she whispered, but metabolism is near zero, like a medically induced stasis. Historian Owen examined personal items. A newspaper with Nixon headlines, ticket stubs stamped DEC 24, 1974, a Polaroid camera mid-flash with undeveloped film still half ejected. Opening a leather briefcase, he found a cassette tape labeled Holiday Mix 74. The plastic felt brand new, the adhesive label pristine. Leo deployed a thermal imager. Every object glowed at 31 degrees Fahrenheit, just below freezing, yet no condensation formed on metal surfaces. Floors radiated faint warmth, as if heat bled from a deeper layer of reality. His magnetometer spiked near window frames, then dropped to baseline at aisle center. Localized magnetic shearing, he noted, possibly a space-time distortion. Moving into the dining coach, they found porcelain cups mid-tilt, brown liquid suspended like glass. A sugar cube hovered half-submerged in coffee that hadn't spilled a drop. When Leo nudged the cup, the liquid surface rippled in super slow motion, each wave taking seconds to crest. Mina collected a spoonful in a vial. Inside, the fluid crawled like syrup under strobe light. Owen unlatched a panel under the conductor's station and removed the reel-to-reel flight recorder. The tape still rolled at microspeed. When he paused it, a voice emerged. Hoarse. Distant, signal fading, maintain speed, tunnel approaching, static drowned the rest. Timestamp read 0010-24-12-74. They rewound further. The counter jumped inexplicably to 0317-24-12-24, matching their own frozen moment. Tape is sharing our timeline, Owen said, skin prickling. Sergeant Ames spotted something on a seat, a fist-sized chunk of ice crusted with coal dust. Embedded inside was a torn rail switch tag, labeled Mount Gray JCT. That junction lay 40 miles north, yet the train had reappeared miles south at Pine Ridge. Riley bagged it, thinking of avalanche debris teleporting with the train. As Mina lowered her stethoscope to a passenger's chest, the carriage lights flared bright white. The frozen coffee liquefied in an instant, sloshing over saucers. Every clock, wristwatches, wall chronometers jumped forward 1 minute, stopping at 3:18. A deep metallic groan echoed through the chassis, followed by a distant whistle, like a train departing inside a glacier. Time's creeping, Clara said. Whatever loop held them is slipping. Owen suggested detaching the locomotive to isolate the power anomaly. Leo argued it could destabilize the field. Dr. Chow insisted on moving passengers to a medical bay before metabolic collapse reversed all at once. Sergeant Ames advocated evacuating the whole terminal. Clara waited, eyes on the steam that now curled along the ceiling like restless ghosts. First we find the engineer, she said. If anyone knows how to stop this, it's the man who drove through time. They pushed deeper into the train, unaware that with each step, the world outside was aging a second faster, while the carriages raced to catch up. The team slid open a sliding door to the luggage car. A frigid gust spilled out. Suitcases lay toppled. Every zipper rhymed with hoarfrost. Clara's flashlight beam caught a leather valise embossed, P. Stanko, engineer. Inside, a logbook wrapped in waxed canvas, a pocket slide rule, and a Kodak Instamatic still loaded with unexposed film. Owen gingerly opened the logbook. The last entry, scrawled in hurried ink, read, "Blizzard thickening, visibility nil. Dispatcher orders hold at Mount Gray tunnel mouth, but I feel a pull, like we're on tracks that aren't there." Tucked behind the logbook, a carbon copy telegraph slip bore faded type, "Stanko, continue through, repeat, do not stop, trust the signal." The slip was stamped, "Alert level, Omega," a code Clara had only seen in Cold War contingency files. "Someone higher than rail control gave that order," she muttered, but the archive shows no such telegram. Leo held up a stack of Polaroids sealed in wax paper. When peeled apart, the prints revealed something eerie. Exterior shots of the locomotive barreling through a tunnel whose walls glowed bluish white, as though lightning had frozen mid-flash. One image caught a bolt of forked energy arcing off the overhead catenary wire. Yet, 1974's North Line was steam-only and had no electrification. The anachronism sent a chill deeper than the car's temperature. Owen flipped to an appendix listing ticketed passengers, names aligned with public records, except one. Eleanor Gray, age 9, car 4, seat 12. No such name appeared on official disaster rosters. Dr. Chow checked car 4, seat 12 held an empty booster cushion dusted with snow. A single mitten lay on the floor, knitted with the initials EG stitched in pink yarn. Was she left behind, or never existed in our timeline? Mina wondered aloud. Sergeant Ames pried open a conductor's waistcoat lying over a seat. The watch inside ticked backwards, seconds hand sweeping counterclockwise. When Leo placed it next to his frozen digital chronometer, both devices ticked in reverse unison, then froze at 3:18:15. Temporal bleed, Leo breathed. Our minute jump wasn't random, it synced to this watch. Near the baggage car's rear vestibule, they found clumps of icy soil mixed with pulverized granite, a geologist's nightmare packed neatly into time. Testing with a handheld spectrometer, Leo noted radioactive isotopes consistent with core drill debris, not surface avalanche. Whatever swallowed them cut through the mountain, not just across it. Spray painted on an interior bulkhead in shaky black letters, "Turn back the turnout." The font matched late 70s aerosol paint. Moisture beads froze along its edges, trapping droplets mid-drip. Beneath, a smeared handprint trailed off toward the locomotive. Clara snapped photos, realizing someone, perhaps the fireman, had tried to leave instructions just before the temporal event peaked. Suddenly, the car's temperature spiked. Frost filmed off glass. Distant whistles echoed as though multiple trains approached from all directions. The car lights dimmed to a bluish tint, and every passenger blinked once in perfect synchrony, then froze again. Mina's vital scanner beeped. Heart rates climbed to 30 BPM, before dropping to zero. They're oscillating between life and suspension, she said, voice tight. Clara gathered the mitten, telegraph slip, backwards watch, and Stanko's logbook. Patterns align, an unscheduled order, impossible electricity, missing child, geological core debris. This isn't just a weather accident. Someone or something redirected the train. Owen tapped the graffiti. Maybe the turnout refers to the diverging switch at Mount Gray Tunnel. If we reset it, we might close the loop. With the temporal oscillations intensifying, Clara made the call, split the team. She, Owen, and Leo would ride the locomotive forward, attempting to engage the manual controls and locate the engineer. Sergeant Ames and Dr. Chow would remain to stabilize passengers if time surged again. The last thing Clara said before moving ahead. At 3:19, we either fix the switch or this train finishes its half-century journey into nowhere. Dr. Mina Chow and Sergeant Riley Ames stayed behind as Clara's trio disappeared into the forward cars. Mina's pen light swept along velvet seats, every passenger caught in mid-gesture. A sailor lifting a thermos, a teenage girl laughing at an untold joke, a violinist whose bow hovered an inch above silent strings. Frost glittered on eyelashes like sequins at a midnight ball. The air smelled of coal smoke and stale perfume, as if 5 decades waited to exhale. Mina clipped a portable ECG onto an elderly man's wrist. The screen displayed a single spike every 8 seconds. Heartbeats stretched into geological time. Core temperature read 34 degrees Celsius. Cell metabolism had slowed to a crawl without freezing outright. They're neither alive nor dead, she muttered, as if time itself were an anesthetic. Riley tested a seatback call bell. The brass button depressed and stayed sunk. 3 seconds later, it sprang up by itself, followed by 3 identical echoes clicking down the aisle, as though the action rippled through parallel cars. A whispered reverberation followed, a voice overlapping itself. Tickets, tickets, please. The conductor's call folded over time like sheets of metal. Down car 4, a faint glow appeared, a boy's toy space gun blinking red. No batteries could last 50 years, yet it pulsed every 2 seconds, illuminating the face of a child, frozen mid-giggle. Mina noted the rhythm matched the ECG lag. Whatever field holds them is pulsing in sync, she realized, an external clock dictating these micro-bursts of life. Seat 12, where the manifest listed Eleanor Gray, remained empty, except for the pink-stitched mitten Dr. Chow had collected. Riley crouched and found boot prints, small, fresh in frost, leading toward the rear gangway. You sure she never existed? He asked. Mina shook her head. Maybe she's unstuck, moving between ticks. A tremor shivered through the car. Frost patterns liquefied, then refroze in new fractals. Cups rattled. Violins hummed a single sustained note. The sailor's thermos cap spun a quarter turn by itself. Mina's ECG spiked to 90 BPM, alarms shrilling, then flatlined again. The pulse is shortening, she warned. If they snap fully back into normal time all at once, metabolic shock could kill them. Riley followed the tiny boot prints into the rear vestibule. Moonlight from platform lamps painted silver bars across the floor. There, standing beneath the emergency lantern, was Eleanor Gray. Porcelain face, blue parka dusted with snow, eyes wide with ancient wonder. She clutched a conductor's brass whistle. Time flowed around her, hair fluttering in a breeze no one felt. Eleanor? Riley whispered. She blinked once, too slowly, then brought the whistle to her lips. The note that emerged was impossibly deep, vibrating through metal and bone alike. Across every carriage, passengers' heads pivoted toward car 4. Eyes flickered, lips parted as though to sing. The whistle's resonance climbed in pitch. Mina's ECG screens erupted with scrolling waveforms. Seatback lights winked alive. The musician's bow dragged itself across strings, emitting a chilling chord. Riley reached out, but air thickened like syrup, slowing his hand. Lights strobed. 3:19 flashed on every pocket watch. Thinking fast, Mina stabbed a syringe of chilled propofol into the sailor's shoulder, betting the drug would counteract a sudden metabolic rush. The needle struck skin just as a tidal wave of warmth rippled outward. Passengers gasped, a single collective inhalation, then exhaled frost, bodies sagging back into seats. The toy blaster flickered out. The violin fell silent. Eleanor vanished, leaving only drifting snowflakes. Mina keyed her throat mic, unsure if signal could reach the locomotive. Clara, pulse is accelerating. A child, possibly temporal anchor, just triggered mass near revival. We need that engineer now, or 147 people will age shift 5 decades in seconds. Through static, Clara's voice crackled. Understood. We're at the cab door. Hold the line. Mina clenched the syringe, watching Frost reclaim the passengers, prayer on her lips that the next surge wouldn't be their last. Clara, Owen, and Leo reached the locomotive door. Steel plates glittered under an inch-thick shell of rime, but the door handle felt warm, as though heat pulsed from beneath. When Clara tugged, the ice fractured in spider vein patterns, hissing like dry ice on metal. Inside, the engineer's chair sat empty, yet the throttle lever trembled against its detent, bobbing as if buffeted by unseen wind. Powdered snow coated the deck plates, only it drifted skyward in slow spirals, sucked toward the roof vents. Reverse convection, Leo murmured, aiming a laser thermometer. Readout, -11 degrees Celsius at his boots, +18 Celsius at ceiling height. Vertical temperature inversion, like standing inside a storm cloud. Owen found a heavy wool jacket hung on a hook. Inside the pocket, a hand-drawn weather chart dated 24 December 1974, 2240. The isobars warped into concentric spirals centered on the Mount Gray tunnel. In red pencil, the engineer had scrawled, one word, I. Clara traced the swirl. It mirrored a cyclone, but its core sat underground where the tracks pierced the granite. He thought the storm had a literal eye, she said, and we drove straight into it. The boiler pressure dial ticked between 210 and 212 psi, though no firebox flames burned. Ampere gauges, obsolete for steam, showed a steady 60-amp draw sourced from nothing. Leo clipped a probe to the frame. Oscilloscope spikes danced in impossible fractal patterns. This isn't electricity, he muttered. It's a standing wave, temporal resonance bleeding as EM noise. Behind the fireman's seat, a metal locker rattled. Inside, a glass jar of snow, swirling like a shaken snow globe, though nobody touched it. Frozen to the jar's exterior was a brass tag, core sample, Mount Gray Layer 4B. The snow inside glittered with microscopic flecks of quartz, geologic strata normally half a kilometer beneath the tunnel floor. The train had apparently drilled through the mountain by phasing around rock, not through it. Owen threaded the black box reel onto a portable player, the cockpit filled with ghostly audio, engine roar, frantic Morse beeps, and the engineer's breathless shout. Gray junction switch stuck. We're locked to the wrong line. Signals all green. Vortex ahead. Static swallowed the tape, then an eerie calm. Only the sound of hail pinging steel. The timestamp froze at 0012, then leaped to 0318, the same temporal jump passengers just experienced. Clara slid back the cab's roof vent. Where night and storm should be, she saw a tunnel mouth, carved in bright, churning aurora. Colors convulsing like oil on water. Deep inside flickered a white vortex, snow swirling into its throat. The outline matched the Polaroid photos. A tunnel, glowing electric blue. That isn't Northern Lights, Owen said. It's the storm's anatomy, a spatial fold. In a cramped passage behind the boiler, they found him. Engineer Piotr Stanko, leaning against the wall, eyes open, beard dusted with hoarfrost. Yet his chest rose and fell once every half-minute. In his right hand, he clutched the diverging switch key, the master tool to unlock Mount Gray's turnout. In his left, a silver St. Christopher medal snapped off its chain. Mina's urgent transmission crackled over Clara's headset. Temporal pulse intensifying. Passengers near tipping point. Clara glanced at Piotr's watch. Seconds hand twitching, but stuck at 0319, 078. We have less than a minute before the next surge, she said. Leo scanned the logbook margins. Only mechanical reversal at the switch will break the loop. Key must turn when vortex eye aligns with 0 hour. Owen unfolded a topo map. A maintenance siding lay 3 kilometers east, accessible via manual control if the locomotive regained power. If we reroute the train onto that siding, he proposed, the temporal field might shear off, letting 1974 continue without us. Clara pried the switch key from Piotr's gloved fingers. The frost cracked like aged parchment. She shot a look at Leo and Owen. We'll ride the storm, flip the turnout, and pray the vortex spits us out, she radioed rear cars. Mina, Riley, brace for motion. We're taking the engine forward. The throttle lever eased ahead on its own, exhaling coal-scented steam that glowed azure in the console lights. Outside, snowflakes spun in reverse. Ahead, the anatomy of the blizzard, its pulsing white eye, opened wide to swallow them. Steam valves hissed, the drive rods lurched, but the wheels made no screech on rail, only a low, glassy hum. Outside the windshield, snowfall reversed in glittering ribbons. Clara eased the regulator open to the third notch. The speed indicator jumped from 0 straight to 45 miles per hour. Yet inertia was absent, as if the locomotive floated down an invisible conveyor belt. They rolled past Pine Ridge Signal Tower. The clock above its door was frozen at 00:15. A technician on the balcony remained mid-yawn, drops of coffee suspended between mug and lips. Every switch lantern on the main line glowed steady green. No flicker, no oil flame tremor. The landscape looked like a colored etching locked under glass. Leo called out readings. Boiler pressure steady, but the reverser lever oscillated between forward and reverse every 2 seconds. Numbers strobing 75, 0, -75, back to 75. We're in dual motion frames, he said. Engine thinks it's moving both ways at once. Sparks crawled along the brass piping, sketching fractal lightning that vanished before it grounded. Owen checked the conductor's wall clock. Its hands tried advancing, twitched, then snapped back, like a vinyl record skipping. In the cab radio speaker, a female dispatcher kept repeating the same 4-second loop. North Line Express, please advise position. North Line Express, please advise position. The loop ended exactly when the minute hand tried to tick forward, then began again. Over the intercom, Dr. Chow shouted, heart rate spiking, 30, 60, 90 BPM, then flat. The surge interval is shortening to 5 seconds. Riley added, frost is melting and refreezing. They're in metabolic whiplash. The entire human cargo was seesawing between 1974 life and suspended limbo. Through swirling aurora, Mount Gray Tunnel emerged, a jagged hole rimmed with ice that glowed cobalt. Magnetic needles on Leo's console spun like propellers. Clara saw the diverging turnout ahead. Main line guided straight into the vortex. Siding diverged left toward an abandoned quarry. The semaphore arm, locked, half-raised, seemed to shudder between stop and proceed. Owen opened Pyotr Stanko's pocket watch. Its hands rotated counterclockwise, racing back toward 00:15. The eye opens every 60 seconds and resets the hour, he said. We must switch tracks before the watch rewinds or we'll loop too. Clara gripped the turnout key, knuckles blanching. Leo vaulted out the cab side door onto the running board, snowflakes detonating into sparks around his boots. He sprinted down the ladder, landing beside the turnout stand. Time stuttered, his stride stretched like motion blur photographs, yet he kept moving. The switch lever was encased in rime so thick it looked carved from quartz. He rammed the key into the lock, twisting until metal screamed. Inside the cab, Clara throttled back. The locomotive shuddered, wheels still humming on rails that looked liquid. The watch clicked back to 00:14:59. Leo wrenched the lever over. Rails clanged, points slid, sparks sprayed blue. At the precise tick of 00:15:0, the engine's pilot wheels hit the diverging rail, yanking the train onto the quarry spur. A sonic boom of shattered ice roared behind them. The vortex erupted, swallowing empty mainline track like a maw. Shockwaves rippled across snowpack, turning it to shimmering powder that fell upward into the rift. Then, silence. Time lurched forward. Station clocks flicked to 03:20 seconds. Frost steamed off car windows. Mina's voice came alive. All vitals stabilizing, heart rates climbing to normal. Passengers groaned, eyelids fluttering as if waking from a communal dream. The deck pitched. The engine finally felt heavy, steel wheels biting real rail under Newtonian gravity. Beyond the quarry spur, the sky cleared. Stars shone without distortion. Leo clambered aboard, frost smoking from his coat. Switches locked, he panted. Loops broken. Clara exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd held. The world had restarted. Yet the locomotive's boiler gauge still pulsed with residual blue light, and in the mirror of the engineer's sight glass, a faint swirl lingered. Proof that time, once fractured, never fully mends. The engine idled on the quarry spur, steam hissing in familiar earthly rhythms. Clara set the handbrake and killed the injector feed. The eerie blue glow in the boiler glass dimmed to ember, then winked out. Normal physics, Leo muttered, tapping the gauge. No flicker, no backward ticks. For the first time all night, gravity felt honest. Mina reported through a now clear radio channel. Spontaneous shivering, elevated vitals, exactly what we'd expect after profound hypothermia. They're alive, Clara. In the background, muffled coughing and confused voices rose, a 1974 chorus meeting 2025 air. Owen unlatched the black box housing. Inside, 2 half-inch reels whirred at real-time speed, no longer crawling. He threaded the tape through a field reader patched into a rugged tablet. Waveforms stabilized, proof that whatever time shear affected the recorder had ended. "Let's hear the moment they slipped," he said. Speakers crackled, hiss of wind, rattle of couplings. Conductor Harrison's voice, visibility 30 yards, track gauge steady. Tunnel lights, another male voice, Pyotr Stanko, see nothing but white. Dispatcher says keep speed, something's pulling the compass. A high-pitched squeal spiked the meters, then an otherworldly roar, more like tearing cloth than avalanche. Timer 0:11:57, Stanko shouted. "I see the turnout. Lever's wrong. Green when it should be red." Harrison yelled, "Brace, we're losing traction." All sound cut. Silence lasted 7 digital frames. Then, a low harmonic hum, identical to the one Clara and Leo felt earlier, filled the track. A female dispatcher's looped request bled in. "Northline Express, please advise position." Repeated, ad infinitum, but slowed to half speed, almost funereal. Leo toggled a spectral view. Another, fainter signal rode under the voice band. A modulated Morse burst. Clara scribbled as Owen decoded. REMAP. Pause. TURNOUT. Remap turnout, Clara said. Someone embedded a message under their own call. Owen cross-checked Stanko's log entry. Red pencil swirls matched the Morse cadence gaps. Engineer and dispatcher both knew the switch position was lethal, but obeyed an override from higher command. Scrolling further, Leo found an encrypted data stream never meant for locomotive logs. Packets labeled Omega Sigma. When translated to hex, coordinates rendered a 3D spiral. Mount Gray tunnels, precise geometry. At its core sat a signature magnetogravitic reading. Values outside any rail agency's research scope. Military black program, Leo concluded. They hijacked the track for an experiment, then panicked when it swallowed a civilian train. Owen isolated a metallic clank 10 seconds before the time tear, like a crowbar striking steel. A third voice, shaky, whispered, "I'm sorry, Ellie." Clara's eyes widened. Eleanor Gray, the missing child. Speculation fell into place. A clandestine guardian, maybe a parent or agent, had tried to force the turnout manually, failed, and left the graffiti message, "Turn back the turnout." The whistle blast Eleanor blew earlier, a residual echo of that same warning. Sergeant Ames, now in the cab, listened tight-lipped. "If this is DOD or DOE, they'll bury it again." Clara shook her head. "Not this time. 147 people were nearly erased, and 50 years of families mourned ghosts who never died." She removed the SD export from Leo's tablet, slid it into a Faraday pouch. "We hand this to independent investigators. Full public record." Owen spliced a new segment onto the reel, speaking into the recorder mic. 0324, 28 June 2025. Northline Express safely diverted. Passengers regaining consciousness. Cause, unauthorized experimental turnout linked to temporal vortex. Evidence secured. He pressed stop. The reels wound down, quietly ticking in ordinary seconds, music to their ears. Outside, dawn's first light bled across quarry walls, turning ice crystals gold. The storm that stole a train in 1974 was gone. In its wake, survivors, untouched by age, answers carved on magnetic tape, and a conductor's whistle still echoing in Clara's thoughts, reminding her how fragile the timetable of reality can be. While dawn colored the quarry walls in rose gold, Leo's magnetometer began screaming again. Readings spiked near the freshly diverted turnout, even though the vortex had collapsed. "Something's still live," he muttered. Clara ordered a perimeter sweep. They found a metal conduit half buried in ballast, cables snaking toward the switch motor, cables that hadn't been on any track diagram. Owen and Sergeant Ames dug with rail shovels until steel teeth struck a small gun-metal case the size of a toolbox. Stenciled on its lid, Omega Sigma Field Node 03. A panel flashed red. "Stand by. Armed." Leo cursed. Remote detonator or pulse generator could reopen the rift. Its battery indicator still read 98%. As the team backed away, the switch lamps flickered from green to amber in a repeating 3-second rhythm. Clara realized it echoed the passenger's earlier heart rate oscillation. "The node is trying to sync with the temporal field we just collapsed," she said. "If it finds lock, we're back in the loop, maybe worse." Dr. Chow reported that awakened passengers were confused but mobile. EMTs guided them onto heated buses. Yet every 30 seconds, a cold draft rolled through the coaches and their breath frosted again. Proof the node was clawing at the fabric of time. If that box goes active, Mina warned, metabolic whiplash could finish what the storm started. Leo jacked a data tap into the node service port. Hex strings scrolled. F-wave init, target NL274, sync, thresh 0.66, threshold climb toward 1. F-wave equals frequency wave, he explained. When it hits 1, alignment achieved. Loop restarts locally. Clara glanced at the semaphore. Amber flash quickened. How long? Maybe 4 minutes, Leo said, sweat freezing on his collar. Owen spotted a fiber optic lead running back along the spur. Source must be line of sight to the tunnel mouth. Some kind of relay. He grabbed bolt cutters and sprinted along the railbed, boots crunching frost. Behind him, the node status LEDs cycled faster. Armed, online, armed, as if uncertain which world to obey. A dull pop echoed. Owen stumbled as a tripwire snapped. A canister buried in ballast burst open, spewing glittering dust. The particles hovered mid-air, then coalesced into scintillating sheets, tiny auroras forming a curtain across the spur. Temporal chaff, Leo yelled, recognizing the phenomenon from classified patents. The dust refracted GPS and radio bands, masking the relay cable. Clara shoved a flare into Leo's hand. Magnesium burns through chaff, she barked. He struck it. White fire roared, vaporizing the auroral curtain. Owen lunged through the gap, slashing the fiber line with the bolt cutters. Sparks arced. The node's LEDs froze, solid red. The semaphore lamp snapped from amber to dark. Back at the case, Leo yanked the battery pack. The display died. Magnetic readings collapsed to baseline. A final glimmer of blue light winked out inside the switch motor. Clara exhaled, trap disabled, but she noticed scorched lettering on the fiber jacket. Node 04 pointed back toward Mount Gray. There were more devices, maybe in the tunnel itself. With passengers safe and local loop collapsed, Clara radioed central dispatch. Initiate zone lockdown. Secure all maintenance portals. We have evidence of clandestine installations. Sergeant Ames photographed the node and chaff canister for federal investigators, while Mina's medics shuttled the last drowsy traveler into daylight. Yet even as the buses rolled out, Clara couldn't shake the feeling. Deeper in the mountain, other nodes still waited, silent tripwires armed for a recurrence. The Lost Express might be home, but someone wanted to reopen the door, and the key, she suspected, lay with the missing child who could walk between minutes. With the trackside node neutralized, Clara regrouped in the dining car turned triage bay. Dr. Chow handed her a stack of hastily printed medical consent forms, each signature dated 24 December 1974. The signing today's year is 1974. Mina sighed. Temporal disorientation is total. Clara flipped to a blank manifest page. The name Eleanor Gray, 9, still glared in ink, seat 12. Yet every census database Mina could access showed no birth record. An EMT approached with a lost and found tray. Among pocket watches and cigarette cases lay a silver child's ID bracelet. E.G. Allergy, penicillin. On its underside was a railway logo, but not the North Lines. Rather a stylized Omega Sigma emblem, identical to the field node. Owen gasped. They tagged her like company property. Leo, now on a stable uplink, ran a rapid genealogical scrape. One Eleanor M. Gray appeared in a classified Department of Energy personnel roster. Birth year redacted. Tagged Project OS Advarms. Parental guardian listed Dr. Miriam Gray, particle physicist stationed at Mount Gray Research Silo, 1970-1975. The silo sat directly under the tunnel line. She wasn't a passenger, Clara murmured. She was cargo. Owen continued digitizing the black box reels. A buried channel, so low it required spectral lift, captured a woman's voice. Please, Piotr, keep the girl safe until signal fails. When the eye opens, follow the turnout. We'll extract at Pine Ridge. The accent matched DOE recordings of Dr. Miriam Gray. Piotr Stanko, the engineer, must have been her inside man. Now conscious, the sailor, James Fulton, agreed to speak. He remembered a little girl in a blue parka, wandering the aisles just before the blizzard thickened. She said she was looking for her mom inside the mountain, he rasped, eyes widening. Then the lights went blue and time cracked. Mina reviewed security cam playback from moments before the time pulse spikes. In each surge, a tiny heat signature flickered, too small for an adult, always near the car's vestibules. She traced the pattern. Eleanor moved toward the rear each pulse, as if steering the train away from the vortex. She's the temporal anchor, Mina concluded. Her presence modulates the loop. Clara pieced it together. Dr. Gray had tested a temporal field in the silo using her own daughter, either willingly or as leverage. Something went catastrophic. The only escape route was the express. Stanko tried to reroute via the turnout, failed, and the train was swallowed. The DOE nodes left behind were programmed to recover the experiment whenever the rift resurfaced. Riley placed Eleanor's pink mitten beside the node canister. Threaded into the yarn, invisible until warmed by daylight, a micro tag lit up. U-235 caution symbol, a radioactive tracer used in early 1970s isotopic beacons. The mitten wasn't just a garment, it was a homing device for field sensors. That explained why the node locked on Eleanor's whistle frequency. If Eleanor's still phasing, Clara said, gaze steely, she's somewhere between here and the silo. She radioed the incident command. We need a search of the disused research vault under Mount Gray. Radiation gear, inertial nav beacons, everything. We're going underground. Sergeant Ames secured DEA hazmat suits already en route. Owen prepared historical schematics of the 1970s tunnel spur that led to the silo elevator. Station clocks advanced to 03:27. Frost ceased forming. Coffee steamed normally, yet an unease lingered. Each minute that passed without finding Eleanor risked another automated node activating deeper in the mountain. Clara pocketed the ID bracelet, feeling its engraved initials like a heartbeat in her palm. "Hang on, kid," she whispered. "Time won't take you twice." Clara, Owen, and Leo climbed back into the locomotive, expecting to find Pyotr Stanko exactly where they'd left him, in the cramped passage behind the boiler, frozen but breathing. The nook, however, was now vacant. Only a faint outline of frost on the wall and the silver St. Christopher medal on the floor proved he'd ever been there. "No footprints," Leo said, sweeping a flashlight beam over undisturbed snow. "He simply vanished." Leo powered up a handheld FLIR scope. Within its monochrome screen, a residual heat blur drifted down the narrow service corridor, human-shaped but translucent, thermal echo rather than body. It pulsed once, then seeped through a closed steel door toward the coal bunker. "That's our man," Owen muttered, "but he's half a minute ahead of the present." The coal bunker hatch squealed open. On the bunker's black slope lay a fresh set of boot prints descending into darkness, each step sprinkled with red pencil shavings, the same hue as Pyotr's log annotations. Clara followed them to a fabric satchel wedged behind a feeder chute. Inside, blueprints titled Sub-Level Omega Silo, Egress Tunnel B. A hand-drawn arrow pointed to a note. Manual lift, code 2412, safety bypass. A pocket dictaphone lay beneath the blueprints. Clara rewound and pressed play. Pyotr's accented voice, shaky but clear, spilled out. "If you find this, I am moving between ticks. I feel the eye closing, but they built another lens under the mountain. Eleanor is the key. The whistle pulls time. I will reach her even if I am no longer whole." The tape ended with a hiss and a faint, childlike giggle. Eleanor's. Outside the cab, wind gusted even though the quarry lay windless moments earlier. Signal lamps on the spur oscillated between red and green at random intervals, unrelated to power feed. Sergeant Ames radioed from the dining car. "Clocks just skipped 18 seconds forward, passengers nauseous." The timeline had begun to fray again, pulled by Pyotr's drifting presence. Owen consulted the quarry map. The spur's tail track aligned with a disused maintenance portal carved into Mount Gray, long before the DOE installation. He traced a path. If Pyotr's ghost is headed to Tunnel B, he'll use that portal. It's 1 mile downgrade, mostly intact tie plates. Clara decided they'd take the locomotive cab forward under low steam and meet search and rescue at the portal. They eased the throttle. Drivers chuffed a gentle rhythm. Pine branches slapped the smoke box, shedding crystal shards like diamonds. Every 50 yards, Leo's tracker caught a fresh heat smear drifting just ahead, guiding them through rock cuts that hadn't seen rail traffic since 1980. Over the radio, Mina reported passengers stabilizing, proof their course shadowed Pyotr's temporal wake instead of diverging from it. The track ended at a rust-stained steel door sunk into granite. Stenciled federal property, no entry. Above it, frost-covered conduit cables pulsed blue twice per second, heartbeat of another field node deeper below. Clara tried the wheel latch. It spun freely, opening onto a draft of stale, warm air. Inside, the tunnel floor sloped down toward a freight elevator cage lit by flickering sodium bulbs. On the grated deck glowed a single red footprint. A tremor rolled through the ground, like distant artillery, followed by a brief starburst of blue light coughing out of the elevator shaft. Owen checked his pocket watch. Hands advanced 3 seconds. stopped, then reversed 5. The silo's lens is powering, he warned. If it locks, we get a second vortex. Clara pocketed Piotr's satchel, pulled the whistle Eleanor had once blown from her coat, and hung it around her neck. We go after him, she said. We'll bring the engineer and the child back, or shut this experiment forever. They stepped into the cage. Leo keyed in 2412. The lift groaned, cables rattling. As it descended, the upper portal door slammed shut on its own, sealing out dawn light. The last thing Clara saw before darkness swallowed them. Snowflakes at the portal threshold skittering upward again, signed the mountains still obeyed a clock older than theirs. The freight elevator rattled to a stop in a cavern hewn from black basalt. Sodium lamps buzzed overhead, casting urine-yellow halos on damp walls. Stenciled arrows, faded but readable, pointed toward Omega Silo, beacon course. Clara's breath fogged, though the ambient readout said 18 degrees C. Temperature and dew point disagree, Leo noted. Time pocket trapped down here? They stepped onto a narrow concrete platform that paralleled a single set of rails set in the rock. Old enamel signs still read, Sub-Shuttle B. A dusty station clock above them was stopped at 00:15, echoing the surface anomaly. Yet an emergency exit light flickered, powered by some unseen grid. Owen swept his flashlight down line. A narrow-gauge locomotive, 2 cars long, paint blistered, stood silent as a tomb. Fleur picked up a figure inside the driver's cab, heat signature faint but present. Piotr Stanko. Clara hurried forward. Iron dust crunched beneath her boots. The locomotive's glass door opened a crack on its own and shut behind them with a pneumatic hiss, though no compressors ran. Piotr sat at the control stand, eyes vacant, hand on the throttle. Every 10 seconds he whispered in Polish, "Do przodu, Eli, keep ahead." The throttle twitched, then slipped back. Clara stepped into his eye line. "Piotr, the loop is broken up top. We diverted the turnout. Eleanor's alive. Come back." His pupils tracked her a moment, then drifted away as if she spoke from a future not yet met. Leo's magnetometer shrieked. Through the front windscreen, they saw why. 50 meters ahead, rails vanished into a swirling lens of rippling glass, smaller than the surface vortex but gaining brightness, iridescent like oil on water. Each pulse brightened the station clock a fraction, trying to push the minute hand forward. Tiny wet prints dotted the locomotive's floor, glowing on Fleur. They let out the rear door toward a maintenance stair descending deeper still. On the last tread sat the silver ID bracelet. Clara picked it up. The penicillin engraving gleamed under flickering light. When she clasped it around her wrist, the lens ahead dimmed, as if recognizing the beacon. Owen unrolled the blueprint satchel. Tunnel B curved beneath the lens chamber, ending at lens control room. Handwritten by Piotr. If lens forms, feed must be cut. Flowgate cables behind breaker wall. A red arrow highlighted a crawl tunnel accessible only from the stairwell Eleanor had taken. Clara issued orders. Owen, stay with Piotr. Attempt verbal regrounding. If he phases, record everything. Leo, prep thermite charges from their emergency kit. If flowgate cables resist shutdown, burn them. Clara, follow Eleanor. Use the bracelet beacon to locate her. Then sever power at the source. Sergeant Ames's voice crackled on the surface comms. Another node flared. Mount Gray seismic sensors reading microquakes. Clara answered, "Going for main cable. Stand by." She ducked into the stairwell. The air grew warm, metallic. Pipes bled rivulets of condensation that ran upwards. At the crawlspace hatch, she found chalk scrawls, childish loops spelling, "Mom." Her chest tightened. She keyed her mic low. "Eleanor, I'm Clara. I'm here to help." No answer. Only the hush of pressurized air and the distant thrum of the lens. Back in the cab, Owen felt a jolt. The minute hand on the station clock lurched ahead 1 tick, halting at 00:16. First movement in 50 years. Piotr's head snapped up. He whispered, "Too late. She's in the eye." Leo armed the thermite, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill. Clara slid deeper into the tunnel, light fading behind her. Ahead, faint blue halos skittered along cable trays like ghostly spiders, the pulse lines of an experiment that refused to die. She tightened the bracelet, the silver warm against her pulse, and crawled toward the heart of the mountain where a child, and time itself, waited to be rescued. Clara's headlamp cut a thin cone through the claustrophobic crawl tube. Buried cables, sheathed in braided alloy, pulsed cobalt every 3 seconds, arteries feeding the lens. With each flash, the tunnel seemed to elongate, then snap back, inducing vertigo. Her bracelet warmed in sync, the engraved EG letters almost hot against her wrist. Ahead, a whisper drifted. "Mom? Piotr?" The voice fluttered between octaves, as if Doppler shifted by decades. Clara called, "Eleanor, follow my light." The bracelet glowed brighter, projecting a faint pink halo down the conduit. Tiny footsteps scuffed somewhere beyond the curve. Through comm static, Sergeant Ames barked, "Seismic uptick. Clock at station just lurched to 00:17. Owen added, Pyotr's body phasing. He's flickering like film frames. Leo chimed in. Thermite armed, give me 60 seconds once you cut flow. Clara acknowledged, breath steady, despite quickening heartbeats. The tube opened onto a vaulted service alcove. Racks of 1970s vacuum electronics hummed beside modern fiber relays, patchwork decades welded into one monstrosity. In the center, 5 fist-thick superconducting cables plunged through the floor toward the lens chamber below. Bolted plates read, Flow gate. Warning, 400 kA. In the corner, crouched Eleanor Gray, blue parka, eyes luminous with swirling aurora reflections. She clutched Pyotr's St. Christopher medal, must have picked it up when he vanished. Time rippled around her. Hair waved in slow motion while her pupils darted normally. Clara kneeled, extending the bracelet beacon. I'm a friend. Your mom sent me. Eleanor studied Clara's eyes, then whispered, the big light hurts. We have to turn it off. Eleanor produced a rusted flat key from her mitten. Etched on its shaft, 2412. Clara remembered Pyotr's blueprint note. Code 2412. Safety bypass. The child pushed the key into a panel lock. Clara twisted. Relays slammed. Indicator lights turned amber. A progress bar flickered. Override armed. 90 seconds. Below, the lens roared alive. Subwoofer thunder rattled the steel grating. Leo shouted over comms, spikes everywhere, initiating burn. A muffled whoosh echoed up the tube. Thermite's white-hot glare. Flowgate current meters began falling. 320 kA, 280 kA. Instead of dimming, the lens emitted a blinding white spear that shot through the concrete floor, carving a glowing fissure toward the alcove. Clocks everywhere. Station, cab, wristwatches spun wildly. Owen yelled that Pyotr had vanished completely, leaving only his frosted outline. The fissure's edge crystallized concrete into glass, advancing inches per second. The override countdown reached 20 seconds. Clara yanked emergency breakers in sequence. Sparks flew. Cables spat arcs, severed by thermite below. The current fell to 40 kA, but not zero. The fissure breached the mezzanine. Glass shards tinkled in impossible slow motion. Eleanor squeezed Clara's hand, tears freezing mid-air. With 5 seconds left, Clara spotted a redundant bus bar glowing crimson. She grabbed Leo's carbide saw from her pack, slammed the blade onto the bar, and closed the lever. A searing arc flashed. Lights died. Override display froze at 0000. The lens howl choked off. Fissure glow faded, leaving charred rock. Silence, save for dripping condensate. Emergency lights flickered on. Eleanor's hair settled. Time resumed one steady tick. Over comms, Leo exhaled. Flow is 0. Lens offline. Owen added softly, Pyotr, he's still gone. Clara lifted Eleanor into her arms. We're going home, she promised. But in the dark recess below, residual blue motes spiraled, suggesting the mountain might not surrender its ghost so easily. With power to the lens severed, red emergency arrows lit toward a sealed doorway labeled Cryo Archive, Lens Core. Leo's magnetometer, once silent, burbled again. Residual field is draining somewhere past that bulkhead. Clara, still cradling Eleanor, pushed the panic bar. The door groaned open, exhaling breath cold as Arctic night. Inside stretched a vaulted gallery. Floor, walls, and ceiling were paneled in polished ice. A continuous, seamless mirror. Supercooled nitrogen vents kept it far below 0, preventing frost, yet maintaining crystal clarity. Footsteps rang like chimes. Every move threw infinite reflections. Clara, Leo, Owen, and Eleanor echoed into glimmering corridors. At the hall's center rose a monolithic hexagonal slab, the mirror of ice. Suspended within its transparent core floated a silver orb the size of a tennis ball, pulsing with soft blue light. Eleanor's bracelet glowed in sympathy. She whispered, Mom said the mirror shows where time hides. Owen's eyes widened. He'd seen sketches in Pyotr's blueprints, an inverse vortex core capable of mapping temporal stress. Probably the final sensor node, he mused, still drawing power from its own cryogenic battery. Moving closer, Clara saw images ripple across the ice. Passengers laughing on Christmas Eve, boarding Kadesh North Line. Pyotr waving Eleanor onto the loco's footplate. Dr. Miriam Gray, white coat flapping, adjusting calibration wheels deep in the silo. Each scene faded into aurora haze, as though recorded in the ice itself. A silhouette appeared, Pyotr Stanko, hand pressed inside the ice, mouth forming silent words. His watch still read 00:15. Eleanor reached out. Their fingers nearly touched, only the glass-cold surface between them. The orb flickered violet. Leo's sensor spiked. "Temporal echo," he said. "He's phase-locked in mirror memory." Owen checked the orb's housing. Thin superconductor threads led to a single kill switch. Destroy the core, and Pyotr's echo might collapse, but so would any chance to map remaining nodes. Keep it online, risk the field re-energizing. Clara met Eleanor's pleading gaze. "We're not leaving him trapped." Eleanor stepped forward, bracelet and metal both shining. Orb light synchronized, then dimmed, recognizing her as the lens's primary sample. A panel slid open at the slab's base, revealing an old-style rotary switch with two marks: loop and release. Pyotr's voice, faint as breath on glass, echoed. "Turn to release. Fast." Clara and Eleanor gripped the switch together, twisting past decades of corrosion. At mid-arc, the ice mirror cracked, hairline fractures spinning outward like snowflake dendrites. Orb light whitened, then collapsed inward, imploding into a pinpoint and vanishing. Shards rained, tinkling against the floor, but did not shatter. Instead, they melted into mist, absorbed by warm air rushing from hidden vents. Where his echo had been, a living Pyotr Stanko now stood, gasping, clutching his chest. Time stasis hoarfrost flaked from his beard. He looked around, bewildered, then spotted Eleanor. Father and child embraced. Their contact sent ripples through remaining ice, which melted into water running up walls to hidden drains. Station clock signals over comm clicked. 00:18, 00:19. Seconds finally flowed consistently. Leo's meters flattened, no magnetic anomalies. Sergeant Ames, seismic activity falling to background. Node pings silent. Clara took a steady breath. Mirrors gone, lens offline, engineer alive. We've cut the mountain's last vein. Pyotr, voice rough, added, and Eleanor is free of the eye. Yet, as they turned to leave, Clara eyed a final, faint reflection on the wet wall. The surface cameo of Dr. Miriam Gray, watching with sorrow and perhaps warning that experiments, once imagined, are rarely abandoned for good. With the mirror of ice dissolved, Clara guided Pyotr and Eleanor back through the service alcove. Water dripped from once frozen walls, pooling in tracks that ran downslope. Time itself seemed to be draining away. Leo radioed ahead. "Lift power restored. Elevator on standby." They stepped into the cage and began the ascent, gears whining like an enormous sigh of relief. At the portal, Sergeant Ames and Dr. Chow waited amid portable heaters and triage cots. Passengers, now fully awake, sipped hot broth and stared in awe as Pyotr and Eleanor emerged. A spontaneous cheer rippled down the platform. Some wept, recognizing the engineer who'd vanished half a century ago. Yet Clara's magnetometer warned of faint tremors beneath, residual nodes searching for a master signal. Owen consulted Pyotr's log. A handwritten appendix described a salvation rite, meant to bleed off field charge using original artifacts. A final grounding, he explained, so no stray energy can ever reboot the lens. They convened on track 9, St. Christopher Metal Faith ID bracelet anchor, pocket watch frozen at 00:15 time, conductor's whistle signal, black box tape, memory. All were placed atop a steel rail insulated with salt from melted tunnel ice. An impromptu altar linking past and present. Pyotr and Clara chalked a white circle around the artifacts, 12 feet in diameter. Passengers and crew formed an outer ring, holding hands despite the cold. Eleanor stood with her father at due north, Clara at south, Owen east, Leo west, cardinal guardians anchoring the right. 6. Invocation of release. Clara raised the whistle. Pyotr held his watch. Together they intoned line by line the verse penciled in Pyotr's margin. "I that froze the winter night now be bound by human right. Memory, metal, heart, and breath, seal the loop, relinquish death." With each stanza, Dr. Chow sprinkled thawed mirror water onto the rail, which hissed and steamed like iron quenching. At the final word, Pyotr clicked the pocket watch crown. The second hand, stuck for 5 decades, lurched into motion. At that exact tick, Clara blew the whistle. A pure tone rose, echoed by the mountainside. Magnetometer spikes flattened to 0. Seismograph's topside read pure background noise. The ground under track 9 felt ordinary. The whistle's echo faded, and one by one, the artifacts cooled. Watch glass cleared of frost. Metal lost its blue shimmer. Bracelet dimmed to dull silver. Black box reel spun down and stopped precisely at 03:30 a.m. Leo sealed them in a Faraday crate, stamped, "Evidence, do not energize." Central Dispatch reported, "All Omega Sigma telemetry silent. No further seismic anomalies. A sunrise ambered the eastern sky, painting thawing rail in warm gold. Eleanor squeezed Clara's hand and smiled for the first time, a child no longer out of sync. Clara addressed passengers and crew. 50 years were stolen, but today we took them back. The mountain sleeps, the line is ours again. We'll see you safely home. Applause mingled with relieved sobs. Pyotr knelt beside Eleanor, promising never to let clocks divide them again. Behind them, steam from the rescued locomotive drifted harmlessly into morning air, no longer blue, no longer haunted, just vapor touched by dawn. The salvation rite was complete. The fracture sealed, the North Line future finally set on schedule. 2 hours after sunrise, a convoy of matte black SUVs rolled up the service road. Men and women in nondescript parkas, badges reading DOE Special Operations, stepped out, scanning the scene with Geiger wands. Lead agent Dr. Lyle Harmon introduced himself to Clara with a tight smile. "We're here to decontaminate residual field hardware." His tone left no room for refusal. Harmon demanded the Faraday crate. Clara refused, citing chain of custody for a civilian disaster. Harmon produced a sealed federal requisition marked Omega Sigma Priority. Before Clara could object further, 2 techs whisked the crate toward an armored van outfitted with a portable Faraday cage. Inside the van, a DOE tech cracked the crate seal. Instantly, the pocket watch began ticking backward. The St. Christopher medal emitted a faint azure glow. Warning klaxons inside the van whooped. Harmon hissed, "Close it," but the watch glass spiderwebbed, releasing a pulse of sub-zero air that frosted the van's interior windows. Leo's magnetometers, still active on the platform, spiked off scale. He shouted, "They triggered a rebound." Overhead wires vibrated, even though no current flowed. Clocks in the station cafe flicked to 0015 again. A sonic rumble echoed from Mount Gray Tunnel. Nodes deeper inside were sensing the artifact's flare. The engineer, still wrapped in a thermal blanket, lunged forward. "Take the artifacts back to the rail," he cried. "They belong to the line, not the lab." Off the ground, the eye looks for them. Eleanor gripped his hand, eyes wide with the old violet shimmer. Clara blocked the DOE techs trying to reload the crate. Harmon reached for a sidearm. Sergeant Ames drew first. Passengers gasped, forming a human wall behind Clara. Harmon's radio barked, seismic sensors rising again. 1.2 micrograbs. He hesitated. Any gunfire risked panic and loss of control. Owen grabbed the crate and leapt onto a flat car coupler. Leo tossed him a length of grounding cable. Together, they clamped the crate directly to the locomotive's rail frame. The backward-ticking pocket watch stuttered, then resumed forward motion. Frost on the van windows evaporated. Magnetometer alarms fell silent. In the mountainside, the low rumble ceased. Central Dispatch reported, "All clear." The cafe clocks advanced calmly to 0657. Harmon's shoulders sagged. "Fine," he muttered. "The artifacts stay on rail until a containment algorithm is written." Clara replied, "And that algorithm will be peer-reviewed publicly." Owen realized the truth. Removing the artifacts from their conductive cradle had been the catalyst that reignited the field. The curse wasn't mystical. It was an engineered feedback loop keyed to the artifact's ground state. As long as they remained bonded to steel rails, earth-grounded and moving forward in real time, the loop could never accumulate charge again. A provisional accord was drafted on a clipboard atop a rail tie. DOE relinquished physical custody. Local transit authority agreed to house the artifacts in a shielded exhibit car, permanently welded to Track 9, open to scientific scrutiny. Harmon signed with a grim flourish. Clara countersigned, ink smearing where cold metal met morning sun. Passengers applauded. Pyotr lifted Eleanor onto his shoulders. Steam curled lazily from NL 274's stack. No longer blue, just white against a cloudless sky. Proof that the catalyst of the curse had been neutralized by the very line it once haunted. Just as the DOE convoy prepared to depart, Leo's laptop spat out a last-minute alert. Omega Note 4, remote ping acknowledged. Coordinates flashed. Mount Gray tunnel mouth. On a hill gash above, a pop-up antenna the size of a suitcase had risen from the scrub, its dish aligning toward the track. Harmon's face blanched. "That's our autonomous redundancy unit. It's looking for the artifact signal." A thin blue lattice spiraled from the dish toward the sky, forming a radial fan that shimmered like heat haze. Owen recognized the pattern from Pyotr's Polaroids, pre-vortex lightning. "If the dish locks onto the artifact's frequency," he warned, "it can target the rail with a reconverging field." Clara, Pyotr, and Sergeant Ames sprinted up the service path. Pine needles crackled underfoot. Static made their hair stand on end. Eleanor followed, St. Christopher medal clutched to her chest, its glow returning as the dish built charge. Below, Leo tried to jam the node with white noise transmitters, but the dish shrugged off his signals. Halfway up, the path shimmered. Clara's left boot landed twice in the same footprint. Piotr's coat fluttered in loops, each flap reversing direction. The hill had entered many time slips, fragments of the larger loop. Piotr yelled, "The eye is reforming locally. Must break dish power before alignment." Seconds on wristwatches skipped back and forth between 07 and 08. At the crest, a bunker hatch yawned where the dishmast emerged. Warning lights cycled amber red. A biometric panel blinked ready lockout. Sergeant Ames pried the cover and shot the hinge. Sparks flew, but the console stayed lit. Harmon's voice crackled on radio. "Panel requires dual authorization keys, hardwired." Eleanor stepped forward. Lines of violet shimmer swirled in her irises. She placed the metal against the panel glass. A chime sounded. Text scrolled. Print subject confirmed. Input second key. Piotr pressed his palm to the glass. The panel turned green, then black. Mast motors whined. The dish sagged, losing alignment. The lattice wavered and collapsed with a faint shh, like wind through reeds. Without an orderly shutdown, residual field energy discharged as a ground wave. Blue arcs crackled across granite, racing downhill toward Track 9. Clara shouted, "Rails are grounded! Ride it out!" The wave hit the line. Sparks earthed harmlessly into ballast, the artifacts acting as lightning rods. Clocks in Station Cafe spun one revolution, then resumed normal rhythm. 0700, straight up. Pine needles settled. The air smelled of ozone and damp earth, not frozen nitrogen. The dishmast sagged permanently. Circuits smoked. Clara knelt by Eleanor. "All done?" The child blinked. Eyes normal. Metal cooled, its glow extinguished for good. Piotr hugged her close, whispering Polish lullabies of safe stations and endless summer tracks. Back at Track 9, Harmon extended a gloved hand to Clara. "Operation Omega Sigma is officially terminated," he said. "We'll decommission every remote node your team will oversee." Clara shook, sealing the truce. Passengers began boarding modern buses for medical screening, free at last from the eye's timetable. NL-274, decoupled and resting on siding, hissed gently. Its headlamp relit with authentic AC current, no aurora tint. Piotr climbed the footplate one last time, tipping his cap to Clara. "From here it's just steam and steel," he smiled. The whistle pealed a pure, ordinary note that echoed across snow-dusted peaks, sound of time flowing only one way. Buses rolled down the valley road carrying passengers who still believed it was Christmas Eve 1974. Blankets and hot chocolate could not bridge 50 lost years. Through the windows they stared at satellites on rooftops, LED billboards, cars shaped like teardrops. Proof the world had leapt forward without them. Dr. Chow promised counseling, new IDs, DNA matching for any kin still alive. Yet even that kindness sounded like science fiction to ears tuned to disco and rotary phones. On Track 9, welders affixed a permanent display coach. Inside, the artifacts rested under mu-metal glass, each labeled in plain language. Time-locked pocket watch, conductor's whistle, St. Christopher medal. School groups would one day file past, listening to Clara's recorded narration. "Curiosity keeps us moving, but humility keeps us safe." The line would reopen for freight next spring, steam engine NL-274 becoming a moving museum piece hauled on special occasions. Piotr and Eleanor stood by the station exit as sunrise washed the rails gold. A social worker held a tablet displaying a modern apartment the Railway Trust would furnish for them. Eleanor traced a finger over the screen, marveling at touch glass. Piotr, face weathered yet ageless, told Clara he planned to study modern locomotives. "Time made me a relic," he said, "but steam taught me. Pressure harnessed can drive anything forward." Clara walked the empty platform once more before leaving. Magnetometers were silent, yet she sensed a faint vibration in the rail, a memory rather than a signal. Closing her eyes, she thought she heard a distant whistle, equal parts farewell and warning. She knelt, placed her palm on cold steel, and felt only steady, earthly stillness. "History," she whispered. "Stay behind the timetable." That night in her office, Clara opened the last page of Piotr's recovered logbook. In fresh ink he had written, "The eye sleeps where sight is no sin. Should it open again, find the child of time and the rail of earth." Together they turned darkness into dawn. She smiled, tore the page free and slid it into the station archive, sealed but unshredded. A breadcrumb for future guardians. Snow began to fall, gentle, ordinary snow. No blue glow, no reverse drift. The camera of imagination tracked upward, revealing Mount Gray under pastel moonlight, its research silo capped and dark. Somewhere below, dormant nodes cooled into useless junk. On the surface, a single rail switch remained locked in the diverged position, coated in honest rust. In the silence, a breeze lifted a scrap of pink yarn from Eleanor's lost mitten. It twirled skyward, disappearing among flakes, an echo of the loop that almost was. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps a reminder that timelines, like rails, can fork anew with one careless switch, fade to black. If this Den Stories journey through blizzards, time loops, and unbreakable family bonds gripped you, smash like, subscribe, and ring the bleg so you never miss our next daily plunge into the uncanny. Drop a comment below. Would you step aboard a ghost train for answers? I'll feature the boldest replies in tomorrow's episode. Thanks for riding the North Line Express from 1974 back to today. Tomorrow, we unravel a brand new mystery, one where a forgotten phone booth rings after 50 silent years. Until then, remember, history keeps its receipts, and curiosity is a ticket you can't always refund. See you in the next tale on Den Stories.